Welcome to this edition of the MDM Podcast. I'm Tom Gale of Modern Distribution Management. My guest today is Ted Cowie, Vice President of Sales for Safety and Industrial Products for Motion. In a 40-year career spanning both industrial and safety products, manufacturing and distribution, Ted has one of the more unique and interesting perspectives on industry cycles and the evolution of the industrial and safety products industry. Through the years, he has held leadership roles in a range of public and private distribution companies, including 20 years with Barnes Distribution, a few years with a regional power transmission distributor in the Southeast, 10 years as president of specialty distributor Safety Today, a few years with a safety products manufacturer, and for the past 10 years as the sales leader for Motion's industrial and safety products business. Ted has also been deeply engaged in the leadership of several industry associations and has also been a valuable advisor and member of MDM's editorial advisory board for more than a decade. Ted's retiring from his role at Motion this month as we speak at the beginning of June 2024. I asked him to join me for this conversation today to share some of his perspectives and thoughts on the industry, some of the strategic shifts he sees taking place, as well as the transition of the specialty safety distribution into what the marketplace looks like today. Ted, welcome to the MDM Podcast.
Good morning, Tom. Thanks for having me.
So I gave a broad outline of your career in my intro. The first half of your career with Barnes and the second pretty diverse. Can you talk a little bit more about that and some of the key parts of that journey?
Sure. You know, as I look back at what I've been doing the last 45 years, there certainly were a few moments that stand out more so than others. But going back to my Barnes days, when I transitioned from the financial side of their business over to the general management and business development side, we also simultaneously got involved in a major project to transition the business from being a independent rep, if you will, or where we called them outside sales reps. They weren't employees, however, they were independent agents. Mm-hmm. And we decided pretty early on in the 90s that model was going to run out of steam pretty soon. And it also didn't really afford the company a lot of ability to direct the sales strategies and the sales process and to make sure we were correctly addressing our customers' needs, not only currently, but the ones that we could see coming in the future. So we undertook a huge project to realign the entire business, turn all of our sales agents into sales employees, and change our sales process. And all of this was well before any of the tools that are out there today, CRM, et cetera. So that was a huge project, and it was one that certainly had some hiccups, as any big project does, but a great opportunity to learn a lot, get a lot of perspectives from people that were not necessarily crazy about the change, and then also to deal with some of the fallout that would inevitably occur as we moved through that change, and how we managed that and tried to protect business and keep the goals and objectives of the company moving forward. So that was a very interesting time, and it ultimately led to my opportunity to move over to the sales and general management side of the house with Barnes when we moved down to Atlanta and started managing our sales team down in the Southeast.
And just for context, in rough numbers, how many salespeople was part of that transition?
Oh, if I remember correctly, I believe we had in the neighborhood of 700 or 800 salespeople at that time, and I could be off by a few hundred up or down, but it was a fair number. It was a sizable endeavor. I remember road trips where we would literally fly around the country and do one meeting in the morning and then jump back on a plane and try and get somewhere else in a couple hours so we could do another meeting that afternoon, and then back on a plane to another place the next day to do two more. And so it was a crazy time for a number of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, massive transition in customer relationship management as well.
Yes, yep. Because the agent model, and subsequently, I believe, at that time, Barnes's major competitors were Lawson Products and Car Products and Kimball Midwest and some others that all along those lines. And most of them had the same model. They were, they had independent agents,
right,
as opposed to employees. But today, here we are, 30 years on from when we took it on. And I think every one of those companies, obviously Barnes acquired a couple of them, but as has Lawson over the years and Kimball Midwest. But I think they all now operate with an employee model, not an agent model.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. I remember that transition for Lawson as well.
so, and then, following my tenure at Barnes, I really had the first opportunity to get into running a business from top to bottom and having responsibility for all aspects of the business. And that was first with the McGraw Group down in Virginia and the Carolinas and that area. And that was a very interesting 2 years. And not having had previous full responsibility for independent companies, P&L and everything else, that was fun. That was challenging. There was a lot of learning that went on. There was a lot of change going on in that business too. They had acquired a company in North Carolina that was called Industrial Transmission, and they were trying to merge it with the McGraw Group or the James McGraw Company, and that's what they ended up calling it, the McGraw Group. We had an industrial-oriented sales force, and we had a PT-oriented sales force. And initially, everybody thought, well, we could, they can all just start selling each other's products and services, and we'll have a big expansion of our business, and so on and so forth. But as is often the case with a sales team, they really tend to stay with and gravitate to what they're most comfortable with, and they are hesitant to take on new areas and new solution groups until they have developed a comfort with it. They don't want to run the risk of damaging the relationship with the customer because they make a mistake on something new. So at any rate, that presented some new challenges that we began working on and had some success with as we move forward with that one. And then that ultimately led to the opportunity at Safety Today back in Ohio, which turned out to be a good long 11-year run. And we had a lot of successes. We also had some massive challenges in 2008 when the economy drove right off a cliff. In all of my years of working, I have never seen the business activity climate literally in a span of 60 days come almost to a complete dead stop.
No.
I mean, everything that was going on just dove right off the cliff, and nobody wanted to buy anything. Nobody wanted to do anything. It was scary and difficult. We obviously had to, make some cost cuts in order to, resize the business for what the realities of the market were at that point. And that's never a fun exercise, but at that point, it's the survival of the business that you have to go through. And unfortunately, we also had some customers that were more heavily linked to the housing sector. So they, really were massively impacted by that shock back in 2008. So,
yeah. And I want to come back to both that and what you were talking about in terms of the challenge of getting sales teams to sell other types of products, because that has, when you take a look at sort of the trajectory of safety, that certainly has been a challenge for many people. But I want to touch base on the last part of your career here, Ted, a little bit, because in our top distributors list that we do, Motion, in addition to the industrial supplies and the power transmission lists that they appear on, also is on our top safety distributors list. Can you talk a little bit about the 10 years in the time that you've been with Motion, how that safety offering has evolved?
Sure. And certainly, the challenge I mentioned just a minute ago about, trying to get salespeople to expand their umbrella, if you will, or their comfort level with what they sell. Safety definitely plays into that and has throughout my tenure at Motion. But we really kind of were able to have success with safety, I think, in three ways. First and foremost, we acquired some businesses that had established safety knowledge and safety business. So that started to bring, probably that started as long as 15 or 18 years ago with a few of the acquisitions we made. And that started to enhance our capabilities and ability to do a better job in the safety space. And then secondly, one of the areas that we've been successful in growing is our national account relationships. And many of those, we've had customers in 5, 10, 15 years with large relationships. But for a long time, it was more on Motion's traditional solution side in the PT and bearing space. But more of those customers have come to us over time and said, hey, we like the way we do business with you. We like the programs and the process and the information that's shared and the results that we get out of it and the ease of doing business, et cetera. We'd like to have you look at some additional areas. Sometimes it's industrial, sometimes it's safety, sometimes it's both. Also, increasingly, the last 5, 6, 7 years, it's also automation projects or conveyance solutions as we grow those areas of our business as well. So that was kind of a second area where safety really started to create growth opportunities for us, and we were able to plug in some incremental growth pieces with different national accounts. And then the third thing is, which has been more organic and much longer in coming, is just continuing using our safety specialists that we have scattered around the country and in Canada, our supplier relationships in my role and our product sales management role. We just spent more and more time with our branches, getting them more comfortable with the opportunities in the safety space and getting them to recognize that it's not scary. Yes, there are some important pieces of information and questions that you need to know how to answer and ask, but that's what our specialist is there for. We don't want you to try and turn yourself into a safety specialist unless you want to be, but utilize our specialists. And over time, I think what's happened is we've done a very good job of getting the broader group of our sales team, which is, in the neighborhood of 2,000 people today, more comfortable selling safety. And we've basically taught them how to fish instead of just doing the fishing for them.
Mm-hmm.
And, they are not detailed safety experts, but they know how to uncover the opportunities. They know how to look for the opportunities and then get the right resources within Motion and our supplier teams engaged so that we can pursue those opportunities.
So we're about 4 years now on from the onset of the pandemic in 2020, and of course there was all of a sudden PPE became the I don't know. I don't know how to, it was the gold rush in some ways for so many types.
It was a wild west for about a year and a half.
Totally. And with, every type of distributor going out and trying to get their hands on sanitizer and whatever you name out there. Talk a little bit about what the impact overall in terms of what that looked like as far as kind of the bigger picture and your perspective on it at this point.
So it certainly was a fascinating time. And again, almost like 2008, it was something that, crashed through the front door about mid-March that year and bang, everybody was in the middle of it. So we had to deal with it and we had to figure out how to work with it. And it was sort of a rolling thing because initially it was respirators and then very quickly followed by, wait a minute, we got to have lots of sanitizer too, because people are using that. Then it started to get into the gloves, and then people started to go, well, what about face shields? And, and so it started to play into other areas, and then it got into temporary barriers and air handling systems and all of the other ancillary things that started to develop as the pandemic took shape. So I think for us, for Motion, we had a number of things going on simultaneously, but first and foremost, we looked at our industrial customers and said our first goal is to make sure that we don't interrupt your need of respiratory or other equipment that for your regular business, your everyday business. We're not going to all of a sudden sell a whole bunch of our N95 masks to somebody that's looking for 500,000 of them because we can make a quick buck, but then have no product to sell to our everyday customer for the next 6 months. So we were very good about not doing that. We obviously, our procurement and supply chain teams got busy trying to, uncover opportunities. We spent a lot of time with some of our key suppliers, whether it was 3M or Moldex on respiratory or Ansel and others on some of the nitrile gloves and things, trying to quickly understand, how were they adjusting their supply chains, what was going to be available to us, how solid was their commitment, were they going to be able to meet things, and it varied. Somebody, for example, like Honeywell, made a decision early on that they were going to stop selling to the industrial channel and only focus on the medical and government channels, which they did for about a year and a half. Most everybody else, kind of took a position that to the extent they could rapidly increase their capacity, most of that was going to go to government or medical, but they would then try and maintain at least an average of what they had been selling the prior 12 months for their regular industrial customers. So we were able to do a pretty good job in holding the fort down on that stuff. And we also were able to take advantage of some of the huge opportunities that came up because of supplier relationships for things like barriers and filtration systems and those kinds of things that, were solutions that customers decided they wanted to put in. I will say something that I think speaks to Motion's discipline through the pandemic is we did not end up having to make any massive inventory write-downs of product that we bought at the height of, whether it was nitrile gloves when they got all the way up to 25 or $30 a box, or masks, some of these cheap little masks that were going for $2 or $3 at one time that normally you buy for 5 cents. We did not end up having a ton of inventory that we had to liquidate and or just write down to market value. So I think that speaks to our discipline to not ambulance chase to a degree, and to try and maintain what we needed to maintain for our regular everyday customer business.
Yeah. I'd like to go back now a little bit. And I just wanted to touch on the pandemic roller coaster part of it, because, overall, when you take a look at the safety distribution industry, I think it's safe to say that more so than any other sector, it really became, as certain other more specialized product sectors and distribution started to look at bringing on and expanding their portfolio products. Clearly, safety was the first choice, and a very natural choice. And so it seemed to me, Ted, that there was this transition where you had a really strong specialty distribution. CETA was in place, the specialty. Oh, now I can't even remember what the acronym was for. The Safety
Equipment Distributors Association.
Thank you.
On CETA, yeah.
Yeah. And I know you were very involved with that association, as were some really great, all the core great traditional safety companies out there, distributors who really had a really strong training and specialized equipment component to it. But all of a sudden you started to see the industry get really commoditized, and people picking it off from the edges. And talk a little bit in terms of how you saw what the impact of what that looked like.
It definitely was. It's still, to a degree, a transition that's occurring today even, but there's no question that I think the distributors that have been able to succeed have had to learn how to uncommoditize some of the things that customers may have a tendency to think of as a commodity, by putting together a broad-based solution for the customer that encompasses all of the aspects of safety, not just PPE, but facility safety, safety training, safety communication, all other aspects, and trying to develop that understanding with the customer that, hey, this is not just about buying a handful of products that your customer or that your employees put on several times a day and throw in a garbage can, or use until they're no longer usable, and then you replace them, et cetera. It's really more about helping you build a safety culture so that your employees are part of what you're trying to accomplish in terms of your safety record, minimized injuries and all that sort of thing. So I think, and then you've got some, the web has also created opportunities for some distributors to, whether they create a sub-model within their overall model that's more transactional and commoditized, and trying to go up against an Amazon or whatever, and makes it easy for a customer to find something and click and buy. So, there are some customers that want to do that. They just want to go out and find something. They need 100 of them, or they need 2 of them, or whatever. They want to click and they want to buy, and they want to get it tomorrow, and they don't want anything else. And I think what, the distributors that are doing an excellent job and are surviving and are thriving they're either ignoring those customers, or they're working hard to convince those customers and focus mostly on the ones that do value that full breadth of safety solutions and capability that goes with it. So it continues to be an evolution, I think, that we're working through. We'll see how it plays out, but there's no question the technical service side of safety has plenty of legs, and there's plenty of opportunities with every type of customer, small, medium, and large, for those types of solutions to be introduced and sold and managed.
Yeah, the added value pieces.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. So looking ahead, what do you see as some of the most significant challenges and opportunities over the next few years for the safety industry?
I think there's going to continue to be consolidation. I think probably in the last 10 to 15 years, the area that consolidated more was the manufacturing side, probably to a degree, than the distribution side, which, if if we were having this conversation 15 or 20 years ago, I think most people would have thought, oh, the distributor side is going to consolidate because there's so many of us. And it has. It certainly has been some consolidation on the distribution side, but I think it's been a little surprising as to how much has been going on the manufacturing side, including the deal just a couple of weeks back with Ansel acquiring KC's PPE business. So that's going to continue to play into things, and I think that's going to continue to create larger partners that have broader capabilities, and it makes it easier to a degree for the distributor to manage their business and manage their inventories and build a relationship with a very important supplier. There is still a fair amount of fragmentation on the manufacturing side. There's a lot of niche products that are still out there, and supply and manufacturers that do things very, very well that are unique for certain customers, and I think they're going to continue to enjoy success as well. On the distribution side, I think the other big challenge is you have a lot of, like myself, you have a lot of aging leaders, and in the case of small distribution, a lot of entrepreneur owners that probably in some cases families involved, but in many cases the family's not involved at this point because they didn't see industrial distribution or safety distribution as an exciting space to build a career, and they went off and did something else, whether it was technology or software or whatever. So, and now these owners are at a point where they recognize it's time to do something else or to figure out how to transition the business. So there's going to be a lot of that going on over the next 5 to 10 years. And some of them, may not be able to sell or may just be in a position where they decide, hey, I'm going to close up shop here in a couple of months, and that'll be the end of the road, and they'll move on into retirement. But so I think that'll be an interesting piece as well that continues to play out, not only in the safety space, but even in the industrial distribution space as well. So
yeah. So as you look back, what are you most proud of over your career?
Probably the relationships that have been built up over the years. I think, there's an old adage in the safety industry in particular that the line from the Eagles song, you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. People within the safety business, they may leave one company, but they end up with another company in the safety business on either the distribution or manufacturing side. And it's, it's like you're always there. But it really is, when you go to the National Safety Congress or A+A or whatever, it's really a group of people that, you've been working with for a long, long time, even though they may have changed horses that they're riding on at different points. You're still friends, and you still connect, and you still do business together, and get to know their families sometimes, which is fun. And so I think the relationships that I've developed over the years, not only with my coworkers, but with manufacturing partners and other competitive distributors, that we know each other, that we're competitors, but still, friends, and you can have a beer together if you want, or talk shop or whatever. So I think for me, that's probably the biggest takeaway, along with learning a lot along the way and having an opportunity to learn a lot, which is not purposely to put a plug in, but that's a big part of what MDM did over the years. I can remember, reading my newsletters 30 some years ago and feeling that helped me stay connected to the industry in a bigger way, without having to call 15 different people to figure out what was going on.
Yeah. So, and you don't have to apologize for putting a plug in for MDM. I appreciate that, Ted.
Yeah. No.
We're having this conversation on your last official day of work. And I appreciate you're taking a little bit of your time today to do this with me, but also I just want to acknowledge that you have been incredibly generous with your time to MDM, and you've been a mentor for me with your deep experience over the years as well, and you've been a mentor to so many I know who have worked with you and for you. So I just want to acknowledge that and thank you for that as well.
Well, I appreciate it, Tom. It's been my pleasure, and look forward to continue helping the MDM team for as long as you'd like. So
that sounds great. So two quick more questions I have for you. And what are you going to miss most on a day-to-day business?
Oh, I like to solve problems. So, when an email flies across, or somebody calls or texts or whatever and says, hey, we got this opportunity, or we got this going on or whatever. And if it's something that I'm oftentimes with Motion, the teams that part of the team that's asking me doesn't necessarily have the answer, or they're not quite sure how to resolve it. And many times I do know where to go to get it done. And it's being able to jump into those situations, help out, and help us get a win or help us solve a problem for a customer or that kind of thing. So that's fun. And I probably will still make it to some industry events just so I can keep myself a little active. I'm thinking I might get down to NSC this September, because I missed last year's because we were over in Germany at A+.
So that Eagle song is sounds like it's still in effect.
Yes, it is. That's right. Yeah, I can never leave.
Yeah, and finally, what are you most looking forward to in your future?
Having the time to not have to worry about some of those things that pop up in the email and the text and the phone, and being able to. I've got tons of projects here at the house that I've been wanting to do for years that I only chip away at, and now I can kind of dig into them and not worry about missing a Teams call or having to get something done for somebody or whatever. And we've got a growing family. We have another grandson coming here in about 3 or 4 weeks. So our daughter and son-in-law will be going through that, and we'll be spending time with that. So it'll be fun doing those things and just getting around and visiting people that I don't get to see as often when I'm working. So
sounds great. And Ted, thank you so much for taking the time for this again. And you have had a large impact in this industry, and I know so many as I have learned from your knowledge and generous sharing of that. So thank you for that, and I wish you the best.
Well, thank you very much, Tom. I appreciate it.
You can find more conversations with industry leaders like this one at mdm.com/podcast. Thanks for listening.